This tape was produced by the East Brunswick Public Library Video Department in April 1978.
Good evening. Welcome to East Brunswick Live. I'm Pat Bargelow, staff member at the East Brunswick Library, and we have a very special program for you tonight. It's coming to you live from our studios here in the library, and the purpose of the show is to help you, the residents of East Brunswick, learn more about your government and become more involved. This is your opportunity to ask questions of the people we have on our show. Tonight our guests are Mayor Fox and John Runyon, the business administrator. They'll be questioned with your help by two very special people from the local Sentinel Publishing Company. Louise Saul, longtime investigator of things in East Brunswick and what's happening, and Judy Klein, who has recently taken over the local scene. We want you to call in your questions. They will be relayed from staff members through our telephone lines here at the library. Your questions will be written down and passed to the reporters. They will ask the questions as accurately as they can as you present them. You should include your name and address, but you need not have them repeated on the air if you don't want to. Call 254-1220, and our staff is standing by to take your questions. Now I'd like to introduce Louise Saul, who will begin the questioning tonight. Louise, take it away.
All right. In a recent book, authored by Cicely Bach, she opens her book with a chilling statistic about the loss of trust in our society. She writes, in 1960, many Americans were astonished to learn that President Eisenhower had lied about the U-2 incident. In 1975, 69% of the respondents to a poll believed that the government consistently lied to the people over the previous 10 years. It is this disenchantment with government that we would like to discuss with you this evening.
I'd like to begin with a question we received from a 12-year-old student in our township school. He called our office this afternoon, and as close as we could get it, this is his question verbatim. How can the juvenile population of the town have faith in their elected officials when they don't keep their promises? For instance, last summer the Township Council promised us skateboard arenas and dirt bike trails. What happened to them?
Well, I'd like to respond to that. To my knowledge, no one has ever promised skateboard arenas, although we have been actively working on that for the last 8 or 10 months. Of all the questions that I get from young people, the request and question that I get most frequently is for some sort of skateboard facility. With regard to the dirt bike trail, there was a committee working on that, and they have basically declared themselves inactive because they found so much citizen opposition to the placement of the dirt bike trail in the township. And they recently decided that they would not continue that effort. I would hope that sometime in the not too distant future that we will have some sort of skateboard facility, either under private ownership or under the auspices of the township. But I don't know that we ever said in the past that we would have a skateboard facility. John?
I don't remember that specifically. All I do know is that the mayor asks me about it every other day, and it's high on his agenda, and we are pursuing it. Mr. Schuster, Director of Parks and Recreation, is pursuing the notion of a skateboard facility, and I suspect that with the mayor's prodding we will have one of these days, without making a promise at this time.
This is a question that came from Joel Allegretti, who lives in Lawrence Brook Village. Almost immediately after Jean Marie Elkins was appointed Democratic committeewoman, she became the town's PR specialist at a salary of $9.37 an hour. Tell me why this is not another example of political nepotism.
Because politicians didn't have anything to do with the decision. I came to the mayor with the proposal, as I remember, and that's the reason why I jumped in first. Sure. I came to Bill. I had been given the charge by the mayor and council to develop a community relations program, and the mayor can speak to that charge. But I came to the mayor with the proposal that since she had recently left the Home News, was a journalist, highly trained in this area, and was available on a part-time basis, it would be an excellent opportunity. So I made a recommendation to the mayor that she be hired, and Bill accepted my recommendation. But at no time did anybody from the Democratic Party or an elected public official come to me and suggest that she be hired. And from my view, it was coincidental that she happens to be a Democratic County Committee woman, as far as I'm concerned.
You mean it was just happenstance?
Yeah. I see no relationship whatsoever. I think that we have very strong rules with regard to municipal employees being involved in partisan political affairs on municipal time. But there are Republican and Democratic County Committee people who work for the town. Ms. Elkins is not the only one. And what people do on their own time with regard to partisan involvement should not be my concern. As a matter of fact, isn't.
Yeah. I think about a year ago, John, the question of a public relations person came up, and you at that time said that it was being put aside for a while. Was that decision rethought, or?
Well, it was a priority of the present council and mayor, and quite frankly, I had been working on it personally and giving it a lot of time. And really came to a juncture that the kind of goals which had been set were not ones that I could give enough of my personal time and attention to. And I felt very strongly that in order to accomplish the things that the mayor and council wanted accomplished in the area of community relations, that we needed some part-time assistance to do that. And that's how the decision really came down. It was basically my recommendation that we proceed in that way. That's what we did. I simply couldn't do it all myself.
Okay. Under the Sunshine Law, all meetings of public bodies are open to the public. Why then is the annual retreat of township administrators held in Princeton, making it all but impossible for interested citizens to attend? Why not hold it in the town most effective?
I'd like to respond to that because I'm largely responsible for it being held off premises. And it's simply that in order to get the environment in which we can focus and give the concentrated attention to whatever subject we're discussing, we found that it's best to get away from this environment and get into a conference environment. Now, the meetings are open to the public, and I recognize it may require some distance in terms of travel, but the meetings are open. There have been observers from the League of Women Voters, for example, at the Conference on Water, and we have done our very best to make available to the public and to the press the reports that have resulted from those conferences, so that there is nothing that goes on there in secret that that would have any negative effect on anybody, and it is open for those people who would like to attend.
You don't think that the conference atmosphere could be attained more locally?
No.
You don't think that that might be outweighed by the fact that some local residents could come if it were here?
No, the kinds of things that have gone on at the staff conferences have not been decision-making kinds of things. They have been problem identification and areas of priority for the municipal staff and for the council and for me. The decisions that have flowed from those problem identifications and areas of concentration have come much later at council action meetings, at sometimes planning board meetings, and at council agenda meetings. In fact, the meeting that's going to begin in a few minutes here on water is actually comes from the staff conference on water which we had. And that has taken now some year and a half, I guess.
It's about a year and a half.
For that to come to fruition. And there have been basically, priority settings, but no decisions since then. The decision-making will come after tonight's meeting.
It almost seems somehow that at the problem identification stage, citizen input would be just as important as it is at the decision-making stage.
Well, it's often that we identify areas that we need to seek citizen input in. And you can say what if, and perhaps we should do this or we should do that, but all I can say is that the municipal staff and elected officials, I believe, have gotten more work and have worked harder in these staff conferences than in any situation that I've seen. And I think that great good has and will come to the community from doing this. We all get citizen input all the time. And at least in one case with the water situation, it was to some degree in response to citizen input. In the case of economic health, this was mainly in response to concerns which the council and the staff had. But I think that there is and has been ample opportunity for citizen participation before the conferences, after the conferences, and during the decision-making process. And the results of the conferences, as far as I'm concerned, have been worth all the hard work and far outweigh the slight inconvenience that might result from traveling the distance to Princeton, for example.
Just out of curiosity, how many residents came to the last retreat?
I believe there were
3 on water. I
yes.
believe my memory serves me correct. There were 3 from the League of Women. No, there were
All?
2 from the League of Women Voters and another resident who was been very much involved in water issues over time.
So no township residents just to attend.
Well, there was no press there either,
Yeah.
and they were all invited.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question. Since it seems obvious that perhaps not just on local government, but all government, state and federal government, that people are disenchanted right now, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the effect on the voter when immediately after your election your 2 campaign managers became township employees?
Well, I hope that the voter would look at the job that they have done, which has been excellent. And I don't, just as it is the case that being campaign managers should not qualify them for a job, being campaign managers should not disqualify people for jobs either. And these are 2 very capable people who were able to step into an area that had been in some chaos, and they've done a very fine job of taking care of that area.
They were new positions, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, can I comment on that? Because there again, I think that there's
John, I know you're going to say it was your doing, right?
There's all kinds of attributions that go on about how the world works. But the 2 individuals to whom you're referring had come to me more than a year before that, before the campaign that you're speaking about, indicating that they were very much interested in a new concept which is being utilized around the country of job sharing, where 2 individuals share a job. And we had talked about that, and I said that there really wasn't any opportunity at this time. We didn't have any positions that were opening that were conducive to that kind of thing. And then Shelley Waxman, who was our grants coordinator and did an outstanding job, left the municipality's employing. And we decided to reorganize responsibilities, and we promoted Roberta Nalvin, who is doing an excellent job as manager of housing and community development. And we decided to take Shelley's position, which was essentially grants, and to divide that position into 2 and to offer it to these 2 individuals to whom you were referring. Now, the genesis of that goes back for more than a year before the specific campaign that you're talking about in terms of the planting of the seed of the idea,
John,
and then my going to them and saying, would you be interested in this kind of project? And they're 2 highly qualified people who do an outstanding job. And I think the difficulty is that East Brunswick is a community of 40,000 people. To say that no one who lives in the community who is involved in partisan politics, either Republican or Democrat, should in any way be eligible for municipal employment is a rather strong thing to do, and or even appointment to boards and agencies. And I haven't found in my experience with Mayor Fox or with Mayor Walling before him that those considerations played any significant role in decision-making
Well,
concerning employment.
I'm talking to you
Yeah.
about the disenchantment of the voter.
Yeah.
And when the voter sees that the two campaign the election is over,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately the two campaign managers are put on staff,
I don't know if
I
it was
feel,
immediately, but
well, I think it was in the next week, or something like that. I'm just asking if you don't think the voter then says, to the victor belongs the spoils, and it's the same old thing.
well, I can remember my appointment where I was called a political hack, and to the victor that Mayor Walling was appointing me solely because I was involved in Democratic Party affairs, on that sort of thing. And I'm quite willing to let the East Brunswick residents decide whether I've done an effective job. That very thing that you have said was, I was accused of, and I think that I hate to get involved in this discussion actually because it's more of a partisan one than I think it is it's a real issue. As far as I'm concerned, I have not been involved in partisan politics for in any way for over 3 years, and the fact of the matter is that the mayor and council have insisted that professional management be the course in East Brunswick, and have insisted that the partisan considerations be not involved in selection for employment in East Brunswick, and it hasn't been. You can always put circumstances together. I don't know how you can avoid that. I don't know how you can avoid that.
Well, John, I certainly wasn't talking about you, and I didn't want to digress to talk about you.
That's
I wanted
all right.
to stay, I know,
I always
you're
like to
very
talk
clever.
about myself.
You're very clever. I wanted to stay with, I really wanted to stay with the topic, because I know
Okay.
that they both had to learn on the job. It was not that they were trained in that area, and I know it took considerable time for them to learn on the job. And what I
Yes.
was trying to focus on was why there is this feeling in the public, what do you expect, it's politics. And that's why I brought that question up.
Because the public is not privy to the fact that there might have been a year and a half in the background or anything
And
else.
it also, the happenstance of the election, and then the week after.
Well, I think, I'd just comment that it would be very easy to say, no, we can't do that, and deprive these two individuals of a job because they happen to have been my campaign manager to avoid that very thing. But as I say, I just don't think that should disqualify them from being employed. Now I can, and I would say to the voter who might be concerned to look at the job that the people have done. Look at the outstanding job that John Runyon has done after the same accusations were leveled.
Well, I really don't ever remember those accusations against
Oh,
John,
I
and I was
remember
very
them.
close to this.
Okay, we've had some questions called in and we've been asked to get to them, so
Good.
they're slightly off the subject, but Shirley Chayton and Alice Kleinberg have called in a question. Is the Department of Transportation planning to build a road cutting through Patton Drive and necessitating the removal of existing homes?
They are not planning. They're planning to do something with the road there. The mayor can speak to his view. The mayor and council have taken a very strong position opposed to the alignment which is proposed for Route 18 in that area, which, if followed, would affect, I think, about 11 homes in the Lawrence Brook Manor area. That hasn't been acceptable to this community now since 1973. And the opposition to that alignment of the road has not changed and was just reinforced recently.
So at the present time, at least, your answer is no.
Excuse me. Well, I don't know what DOT is planning, except that we have taken the strongest possible stand opposed to any work there that would affect any residences in East Brunswick.
Okay. Okay, this is Sari Knox, resident of Normandy Woods, having trouble getting the builder to make repairs to the subflooring in the kitchen, and he understands that building codes are good in town and would like to know what action the town can take. There's another question from Normandy Woods as well. Is the builder held liable by the township if subcontracting work is inferior? And that's from Mrs. John Fallon. I guess you can take them both together.
Well, we have builder's licensing ordinance, which is still in effect. Unfortunately, it's been recently preempted by state law, but their homes were built when that ordinance was has been in effect. There's a bond posted by the developer, which the resident, if they come to our building inspection department in the downstairs of the municipal building, can file a complaint, and that bond is held, which gives the right for the citizen to institute litigation against the developer to force him to comply. The specifics of that, if they visit Mr. Barth in our building inspection department, he can tell them what they need to do specifically to get compliance from the developer.
Okay, one more, and it's a favorite question in town on street trees. Why does it take so long to replace the trees in front of our houses when the township is supposed to take care of this matter? And that's from Lynn Frost.
Well, we have been attempting in the last year or two to catch up completely on street trees. We last year frankly underestimated the number of trees that had to be replaced and the amount of tree work that had to be done, so that by last May, all of the funds that we had allocated at that time for street trees were exhausted if we simply met the complaints that we had up to that point. So last fall, we decided that we would attempt to deal with all of the complaints, and the trees have been bid, and some have been installed, and
They're planting now.
And they're planting now, so that there should be tree work done in the very near future, and if it is not, then that person should call the Recreation and Parks Division office and let them know that she has a missing street tree, so that it will be recorded and be, if not taken care of this season, be taken care of in the fall. One reason they're not replaced promptly is that you can't plant trees all the time. You have to plant them either in spring or in late fall, or they won't survive. So that we can't come out instantaneously and put a tree in the ground if there's a problem.
I think one of the unfortunate things is about 2.5, 3 years ago we changed the ordinance which requires the developer to give the township the money, and we plant the trees now. Those people who live in subdivisions that are older than that, there's a performance bond for 2 years. It sometimes goes somewhat longer than 2 years. Then there's a maintenance bond for 2 years. So for anywhere between 4 to 6 years, the developer in the older subdivisions remains responsible for the street trees, and we have to get compliance from the developer. And in fact, we just won a settlement from the Prel Mid-Atlantic Corporation for Colonial Oaks West Sections 6, 7, 8, I think, where we've gotten money for the developer so that we can go in and plant the trees. But in some of the developments that are 5 and 6 years older, where it seems like it's been so terribly long, it's been a matter of our having to coerce compliance under performance and maintenance bonds from developers, which is much harder to do.
Okay, Mayor Fox, you've often said township residents don't attend public meetings or town meetings because they're pleased with the way their municipal government is being run. Do you think voters are really pleased with a 9-cent increase in their local property tax this year?
Well, what I've said is that they either don't come because they're very pleased or they feel it won't do any good, and I hope it's because they're pleased. I'm not pleased with the 9-cent increase, and I don't expect anybody else to be ecstatically happy about it. I think that it is a reasonable increase, and I think that it can be justified, and I think that people are getting the services that increase will produce. And from that standpoint, it isn't that they're throwing their money down a rat hole. There are services coming out of municipal government, and there are things that people are getting out of it. So that I think that most people, or I would hope that most people at least recognize that it does cost money to provide government and that they are getting something for it.
I would like to bring up a subject. During the last budget, not this last one, but the year before, the budget work session, $5,000 was earmarked for a negotiator, for a professional negotiator, to help when we negotiated with the police and with the municipal employees. And at the time, I remember the council said, gee, that's a great idea, and everybody said, we really need help in this area. I don't know whatever happened to that, but that disappeared, and We did not have a professional negotiator, and it may be because of that that we ended up with the highest starting salary for police in this county, $14,000 a year without the fringes, and that means that a high school graduate, a kid right out of high school, conceivably could get $14,000 a year working on our police, for our police. Now, first I'd like to know what happened to the negotiator, and since that was promised, and we had it in the paper, I think we even had an editorial lauding your position, and secondly, I think that there's an inherent conflict of interest when someone who works for the township, and I realize there has to be some of this, is negotiating, because what he negotiates is, if he negotiates orthodontry, as an employee of the town, he is going to get orthodontry. So this is an inherent conflict of interest, and I wondered who talks for the taxpayers in these sessions.
Well, the council and I talk for the taxpayers, and let me take that from the top if I can. We investigated various negotiators and the services that they provided, and we found out that it wasn't worth $5,000. Basically, the kind of service that gets provided is to read contracts and check on contract wording and that kind of stuff, and they really don't provide that much service. Secondly, we have great confidence in John's ability to negotiate for us. He's very good about keeping the council and I informed of the progress of negotiations, and we feel that we could not have a better representative. Thirdly, he's not represented by the bargaining unit, and I think that that it's quite frankly well, just despicable to challenge his motives as a negotiator. I think he has the best interest of the community at heart.
Let's not personalize this, Mayor Fox,
Well,
because I'm not personalizing it. I'm just saying that this is a conflict of interest.
Well, I don't believe that it's a conflict of interest, and I believe that John has done an outstanding job of representing us, and you know, that I would not have it any other way.
Okay. I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Our time is just about up. I'd like to thank Louise Saul and Judy Klein from the Sentinel Publishing Company, and Mayor Fox and John Runyon from the municipal offices. This is your show. Be sure to call in, and be sure to tune in next week when we have John Schneider and Mike Opoleski, who will discuss the water problems. So next week, Thursday night at 7:30, call 254-1220 and describe your water problems and relate your questions on the water. Thanks and good night.
This tape was directed by Kevin O'Rourke, switching and engineering by Paul Faciolo, cameras by Peter Matliano and Paul Goodberg. This has been an East Brunswick Public Library video production, April 1978.